Hi, this is Sue Doyle with OT Lifestyle Solutions again. So I'm answering a question that I often get and I hear people often ask is what makes a home ADA compliant? And so I want to talk a little bit about that. So the ADA, or the American with Disabilities Act, is one that was put into place and it's been updated a few times to kind of look at providing protections for people with disabilities so that they have equal access to just the everyday business and public spaces that we do. So it is really looking at local, county, state, and federal agencies, any business that relies on general public, private companies that have 15 or more employees, charities that have 15 or more employees. Each of those are covered under the American with Disabilities Act. Now, it often impacts the building and the physical environment, but it also impacts things like the virtual environment and websites. And so one of the things that's really people don't seem to understand, I often hear builders say, I'm building to ADA specifications. The ADA does not apply to a private home. For example, in the rules, one of the things that you hear it talk about, it's restaurants, public restrooms, airports, train, bus stations, apartment buildings where there's a lot of apartments, but it doesn't apply to a personal home. So that kind of is, how do I make my home ADA compliant? What is it? In fact, your home shouldn't be ADA compliant. Now, when we talk about that, the American and Disabilities Act in 2005 defined something called universal design. And again, it's kind of one of those things where we're wanting the physical environment and the virtual environments to kind of meet the needs of the widest extent possible of people, right? People want to be able to access those things. But again, it doesn't apply to a home. It's one of those things where it's kind of encouraged. They're trying to look at equitable use. They're trying to make it so that people can be flexible and you don't have to make a lot of adaptations. There's not a lot of physical effort required to participate. All those kinds of things that look at meeting the needs of a majority of people. But that doesn't still meet the needs of an individual in their home. Now, coming from the whole ADA and universal design is something that's very different. It's called visitability. And visitability is something now that's starting to get written into local, county, and city rules that looks at applying full accessibility to some of the parts of a home in that county or city area. So now, if you're submitting a plan to that county for a new home building or even modifications, they're going to require you to meet those visitability requirements. There's several of those in the South and the East. And so one of those things there's at least one entrance into the home that's 0 step. So there's no steps at all to get in. That the doorways are at least 32 inches wide and the hallways 36 inches wide, so that most people in a wheelchair or with mobility requirements are able to A, get in without having to get up steps, and B, are able to get through a door and down the hallway. They also require that there's a ground floor half bath or full bathroom that has sufficient size and access for someone in a wheelchair to be able to get into it. This is called visitability. Now, this is in some areas, of course, some of the requirements, like I said, that are applying to the personal home. What most people, when they're looking for how to make a home ADA compliant, is they're looking for something to answer the question of full accessibility. Accessibility for someone who has mobility, vision, and or cognitive impairments. And this is a unique situation. The others tend to be more like hospital socks, one size fits all, and often nobody. Whereas full accessibility is designed for that individual, their specific impairment, and their specific needs, and the family or the caregivers that work with them and live with them and their needs. And then it's designed uniquely. This is really a specialty niche. This is where occupational therapy shines, because it looks at that mix of the person, the occupation or the things they want to do, and the environment, and how those all impact that, and how they can be best adjusted. So that full accessibility, when people are asking, how can I make my home ADA compliant, usually they're wanting to be able to make it accessible, fully accessible for a person who has some limitations of some kind, or some physical changes that are needed from the standard person who can walk and do things at a different level. So that is, how do I make my home ADA compliant, accessible? ADA doesn't apply to the personal home. Visitability is some of the requirements that may start applying to personal homes in certain areas, usually when they're rebuilt, or when you're putting in for new planning in certain zones and cities now. But what most people want is full accessibility for someone who's facing some challenges or some different abilities to be able to continue living in that home environment. So if you have any more questions, feel free to write them below this video. Reach out to us at OT Lifestyle Solutions, because fully accessible homes are what we specialize in. See you on the next video.